Hello everyone, today I will show you my game, what I played with black pieces. My opponent was international master Loetscher Roland from Switzerland, and we played this game in Zuerich on Christmas Open Tournament 2004. He started game with d-pawn. He played d4. I continue knight f6, c4, e6, g3, and this is one variation, Catalan opening, where white want to fianchetto his bishop to g2. I played d5, bishop g2, bishop e7, knight f3, castle, castle, and this is the main position, main setup in Catalan opening. And here the best, maybe, but we cannot say the best, but there is the main line for black is just to accept this pawn and to take to c4, and this variation called open Catalan defense. And there is another line, this is close Catalan defense with the c6, and I choose this one, the second option, c6. I like to play close Catalan, and I played this position many times, and it was some good games I made also. Queen c2, knight bd7, then b3, protect c4, then b6, rook d1, and here black has option to put bishop to b7 or to a6, later to play rook c8 and c5, but I like in this position to play move a5. Why a5? Because in some moment I stop white to play a4, a5, and I will play with my bishop to a6, but it looks much better when a5 is already played. Then bishop on a6 is much better. And in some moment black can also play a4 to open this a file, and it's very flexible. It's depend how white will continue here. White played knight c3, and then I played bishop a6. Now I attack c4, and he has to protect knight d2, rook c8, e4, and when white attack the center, and we can see that knight is on d2, then rook on d1 is not so strong, and here is time for black also to make contra attack in the center, c5. And we can say now that this position is interesting, and because white has more option how to continue. He can take to d5, and he can take to c5. For example, my opponent played d takes c5, but what's happened if he can play ed5. On ed5, cd4, d6, f takes e6, knight e4, and black played b5. I played two times one rapid game against Grandmaster Ilinčić Zlatko in Temerin in the year 2000. I played this move b5, and I won this game. It was very good game, and because of this game I won this rapid tournament. It was the last round on this tournament, yes. And one game more I played against Grandmaster Vladimir Tukmakov in Blitz, I think in Winter Tour long time ago, and this game was draw. But we can say that black is really good here. Black want to play maybe queen b6 and many options for black, and it's not so easy for white how to continue. For example, knight g5, black doesn't have to worry about this pawn e6. He can just easy play knight c5, protect this pawn, maybe want to play d3, and black is something better, but also we can say the position is maybe unclear, that both players has good chance. And this possibility to take ed5 is also very good for black, like d takes c5. After d takes c5, I played move d4. And my opponent didn't want to move his knight because bc5, and then I will have passed pawn, protecting passed pawn on d4, and he played first c6. And now I spent a lot of time what to do, and I decide to take rook c6. And it was not easy to decide this, but I will show you what was the reason. I wanted first to play knight e5, but he can play knight f3, pawn on d4 is handing, knight on e5 is handing. After changing, then e5, and here white can jump with his knight to d5. And after rook c6, everything is okay, but knight on d5 I didn't like, and I thought I can do something that white cannot put his knight on this square. And here I decide to take with the rook on c6, and I thought if my opponent play knight b1, just to play e5 with the idea b5 later, and black is very good here. But in this position, my opponent, he played e5. e5 is a move, he attacked the rook and attacked my knight. I saw this move, and in my calculation, I thought I will give I will sacrifice this rook with the move knight e5. And of course, here white has to decide what to do, but now I just took this pawn, and if he moved the knight, I will move my rook, and black will have pawn more. Now when he played e5, he cannot stop, he has to take this rook. Bishop c6, and I played first d3, and then I want to take on c6. And here white has to decide where to go with queen. He did queen b2, but we can see what's happened on queen b1. Queen b1, it looks more logical, because rook on d1 and queen on b1 will attack d3. After knight c6, then knight f3, and this pawn on d3 is handing, and it looks that white will take back this pawn, and then white will be maybe better, but white cannot take this pawn back. This is a big problem for white. Black has knight b4, protect this pawn. For example, if white continue a3, then knight c2, rook a2, then bishop comes to c5 with the idea knight g4, and f2 pawn is not so good. And in this position, after knight b4, what's happened if white continue just knight e1, and 3 times attack on d3, and how black can defend this pawn. No, black doesn't want to defend this pawn. Black has some option like knight g4 because queen, bishop, and rook and all these pieces, they are not so active. They are all on the first rank. Of course, we can say also this one, and black want to play just queen d4, attack the knight, then attack f2, and maybe this can be just easy, but also black want to put bishop on this diagonal, what will be very dangerous for white. For example, white is doing knight d3, then queen d4, attack the knight, and what to do. If, for example, if white play knight b5, then queen e4, and black want to play bishop b7 and to give some checkmate to white king, because all white pieces are on another side, nothing to defend his king. And after this move, also now white wants to change the queen, but black has interesting move, and not only interesting, very good move here. This is queen f3 with idea queen f2 and queen h2 checkmate. White can play queen c2 to protect this, and then knight f2, take the pawn, and then want to play knight h3 checkmate. White has to take this knight because rook is handing, but now rook is already handing, and queen d1, queen f1, bishop c5, king g2, bishop b7, and if king goes to h3, then it's checkmate, queen h5. White has to do knight d5, queen c2 check, king h3, and then he takes d5. And if we count, black has pawn more, but not only pawn, white king is very weak, and black has two bishops, and position is much better for black. And here we can see that white doesn't have what to do in this position. Maybe another option is just h3, attack the knight, but this position show how black is very good, and black doesn't count pieces, he just play for the attack. Here black can do bishop b7. It's just easy. Black doesn't think that he has to move his knight, because we can see after queen here, it's so dangerous how white can protect from queen f3 or queen h5 and some checkmate on h1. It's not so easy to protect all this. For example, bishop f4, then queen h5, want to give checkmate, and here only move to protect all this is knight d5, pawn takes, knight b4, then pawn takes c4, and again some kind of checkmate. On king f1 is coming bishop f3, also very strong move. Then knight comes to d5, bishop d5, and rook sacrifice, queen d5. And here we can say that the white gives back all material he won, and then on the end it will be 2 pawns more for black, and black has better position. And we can see that queen on b1, if we go back here, queen on b1 is misplaced. This place is not so good for queen, because queen doesn't protect f2 and cannot go so quickly to defend white king. And because of this, my opponent, he played queen b2. I took knight c6, he played knight f3, but now is different because d3 pawn doesn't handing, and bishop on a6 doesn't do anything. We need so quickly to bring bishop to this diagonal, to open this diagonal, to bring queen in the game, and to make some threat over this diagonal. This is very important for black. And here white continue bishop e3. For example, what's happened if white play knight e1? Knight e1, this is also some logical move. White want to take pawn d3, but black has nice option. This is knight e5. Black open this diagonal, want to play queen d7, queen c6. This is some main idea in this position. If white continue bishop f4, then knight f3 check, knight takes, bishop takes, rook d2 because rook is under the attack, and queen d7 is a good move. Why this is a good move? Because threat for black is e5 and queen h3. For example, if rook e1, then e5, and if white takes with bishop, then queen h3 with idea queen g2, checkmate. And also, for example, in this moment, if white played rook e3, then just e4, and we can see that white has exchanged more, but black has the pawn for this. But bishop on f3 is very, very good. For me, this bishop is much better than rook, and maybe for black it can be for white, excuse me, for white it can be good just to give back some sacrifice to take rook f3, but this is also not so possibly, because queen will quickly go to h3 and to try to give some checkmate. Yes, black is better here, but for example, if white want to save his position, he can play queen b1. Now e5 doesn't go because white can take, and then will protect the king with the move queen f1. This is very important, but black can continue rook d8, and here black position is much better. Then black will try to put bishop from e7 in the game, and knight, to do something. Here black has excellent compensation, and we can say black position is better. Okay, here white played bishop e3, and I played knight g4. I attack this bishop, but not only to attack this bishop, I want to change one of my knight to play knight e5 to open this diagonal. This is my idea, not to take e4. For example, white played queen d2, but what's happened if white is playing h3? We can see one more time that some moves like this, white can play knight b4, and attack f3. This is just changing if white take to g4, but if white play knight d4, then bishop f6. Again attack this knight, and for example, if pawn takes, then bishop d4, a3, and here we can see also a very strong attack on this diagonal, because the queen is coming here and the queen wants to come here and to give checkmate on g2 or maybe on h1. And if white takes on d4, black doesn't want to lose time to take this bishop. Black can play immediately queen f3. And how white can stop black from idea to give queen h1 checkmate or queen g2. Knight d5 is only move, then black takes knight d5 because the knight is under attack on b4, and if cd5, then bishop takes d5 and black is winning. White has to give up this rook, queen takes, pawn takes d5, and now black has excellent move, it's e5. And if bishop takes e5 or b6, then black can take here, and there is a big threat over this diagonal. On g2, on h1, white just need to give this pawn, and we can say black is much better in this endgame because white king is very weak here. But this is after h3, but h3 black has good move knight to b4. But what's happened if a3, then white doesn't give black to play knight b4. But then the main idea after knight g4 was not to play knight b4, but to play knight e5 and to change this knight and to open the bishop from b7 and later to put queen in the game. And this is very easy plan for black. Knight can take, knight takes, king f1 because there is some threat to give some check on f3 and here bishop f3, rook d2 and queen a8, and here is not easy for white to continue. Black can play knight g4 or just move the bishop and then queen is coming to h1. Black is much better here. And here white continue queen d2, also attack d3 and protect e3 bishop, but I played knight e5. Want to change the knight and then to bring another knight to e5 and later want to jump to f3. It's just easy. For example, if white played, if white play knight e1, then black can do queen d7 with idea queen c6 and to give some checkmate, or maybe another move if white just take to e5, black can take, then knight f3 is threat, king f1, queen d7, and again queen c6 and queen a1 is very dangerous for white. Then in this position it's not easy for white to find the best move. And what is the best move? There is no the best move because this position is clearly better for black. Black has big advantage in this position. White played knight d4, and in this position I sacrifice the queen to d4. Okay, this queen sacrifice is not so important because this is just temporary queen sacrifice, and then I give check and attack the queen. But what is important? Where the white king will go? On g2, but g2 square is not so good. Then bishop attacking this diagonal. But if king, for example, go to f1, then this is really not so good because knight takes here, rook takes, knight h2, king g1 is not possible because of check with the knight and take the rook. Only move is here, knight f3 here, and then knight d4, rook d3 and rook d8. And we can see black has bishop and knight and also one pawn against rook, and this is enough good for black. Just to continue this endgame, black is better here. And we can see king f1 is not possible, and white king must go on this diagonal. King g2, and now we take queen with check. Bishop from b7 give check. King h3, and now knight f3. Black attacked the bishop on d4, and white has to do something. White played bishop b6. But if we go back, we can see maybe some another option. There are king g4, maybe rook d3. To see first about rook d3. Rook d3 is interesting, but want now to take king g4, but black has this move h5, and there is no good way for white how to continue this position. For example, bishop takes pawn, knight g5 check, and only move for white is king h4, then knight e4 check from the bishop, and king must go to h5, otherwise king h3 it will be checkmate, knight f2, and here knight e5, and we can see that black want to play g6 and bishop g5 to give some checkmate, and white cannot protect this. Also g6 and knight g4 checkmate. For example, to protect g4, but then cannot protect g5, and this position is completely lost. And for example, here if white continue king g4, but this move is big mistake because f5, only move is king here, then knight g5, king here, bishop g2, and the black doesn't give white king to come back to h3, and now it will be checkmate in few moves. For example, rook d3, then knight f7 check, king h5, and g6 checkmate, because it's checkmate from with the pawn, and then maybe only for black to take this pawn, but this is just nothing because there is also threat to give checkmate. Bishop f3 here and here, and this is checkmate. And we can see that there is no way for white king to escape from checkmate, and white took bishop b6, then I played f5. I protect this knight and want to make some kind of checkmate. It's depend what he will play. My opponent played the best move. This is king g2, and he came again on this diagonal and bishop is on b7. But what to do? If he continue, for example, rook d3, this is not good. Then knight g5, king h4, knight e4 check, king if king goes here, then g6 is checkmate. But if king goes to h3, then knight f2, bishop f2, knight f2 is checkmate. Yes, this is not so good, and there is big threat everywhere, and it's not easy to play this position. King g2 is only move to escape with the king, but now I played first. If we watch the board, black has two pieces against rook, and there is also very dangerous pawn on d3, but not only this, there are many threats on this diagonal, and a white knight can jump somewhere. But first I attack this knight, and now is a question where knight will go. My opponent played rook a c1, but for example, if we look knight a4, then black can play knight g5, and if king goes king g1, knight h3, king f1, knight h2 is checkmate, because I have a very good bishop on b4, on b7, and two knights. It's a very nice checkmate picture here. But if white goes king f1, knight takes pawn, king here, knight f3 check, king f1, knight e2, king g1, and then black can just easy play rook f6 with idea rook h6, rook h1, and I don't see how white can continue in this position. It's a very bad position for white. And here, when I played bishop b4, my opponent played rook c1, and then I played d2, and he resigned the game. Why he resigned the game in this position? Because pawn attacked the rook. Rook cannot go to b1 or a1 because knight on c3 is handing, and here it means only move is rook c2 to protect the knight on c3, but then is coming discovery attack, a double check from the knight and from bishop from b7, and the white has to move the king, and then black can take the rook, and now black has this is a knight more and completely winning position, and then white resigned. Because of this, white resigned the game, and it was a very nice game. And I hope you will like this position, you will like this game. And what is very important in this game, it's important some moment when I decide to sacrifice the rook, and after this okay, d3, queen b2, knight here. Here is important to play for compensation, but need so quickly to try to change this knight on f3 and to open this diagonal to play queen d7, queen c6, and to give checkmate. It looks so easy, and when I watch after many years, I watch this game also with computer, and computer said all moves were very correct, and I played excellent. This on big grandmaster level was played this game by black side, and this is very very nice how you can follow some attack, for example, like this, and white doesn't have many options how to protect his king. Then it means that mistake maybe for white, it was just in the opening after some move d4. Maybe white should just play some normal moves, but not to try to take this rook. For example, here to play knight b1 or knight e2, then black can play e5 and to continue this, but this looks nice, but not so good, because bishop on a6 is much better than rook on a1 or maybe rook on d1, because this bishop on open diagonal is so dangerous for white king. Yes, I hope you like this game and you will learn something new from this game. Thank you very much. See you soon with another video lesson, and until this time, bye bye.